Jake Gilbo 11 breaking down some GPP bets for tonight's slate. 6 games. Just going to go game by game here since I'm solo. And let's get going. Cleveland and Baltimore, Wade Miley versus Mike Clevenger first. You look at Indian side first against lefties. In play for me here, a lot of these right-handed bats. Lindor over 200 ISO against lefties this season should be leading off. Obviously, don't mind him and going up with Jose Ramirez and Encarnacion all in play. Don't hate on this back half of the lineup either. Austin Jackson, 408 Woba, 241 ISO against lefties this year. Yan Gomes over 200 ISO against lefties. So very much in play with Miley allowing a 352 Woba to righties. So on board there. Talked about this Baltimore team on the pitching pod a little bit. Mike Clevenger's not bad against righties, and we've just seen Baltimore struggle against righties this season and just be very boom or bust. And that's how I'm going to treat him tonight. I'm not expecting a ton of potential, but they're a team that can put up 10 runs on any given night. So against righties, they're obviously not bad. You look at some of these guys, Machado over a 200 ISO against righties that finally came after the Tomlin night. Adam Jones, 197 ISO. Mancini's been crushing righties this year, 423 Woba, 284 ISO, but does have that high strikeout rate. He'd be a really contrarian play. You get in this back half, even Scope, Wellington Castillo over 200 ISOs against righties. So power potential's there. The problem is they just strike out a ton. There's a lot of risk, but that's what we're here for. GPP bats that do have high upside. Curious to see how Baltimore's ownership does tonight, because I just think people are going to figure out that they are, there's better options. You got the Yankees, you do have the Indians. Dodgers have been red hot. Braves are in a good spot against Matt Cain. It's also going to draw some ownership. Cruz against the lefty. So we're going to see ownership probably be a little spread out here. We'll get to this next game, and that's where I think it's going to be a little bit chalkier, and that's on the New York side. As far as the Angels go, I just don't want any piece of them. I just don't see the need. This was a 4-game slate. Maybe I could take a 1 off or 2 off here. You can always look at Calhoun, but, he's been awful for most of this year. ISO's been down across the board. He'd be the only guy to really take advantage of that short porch or Valbuena, but for the most part, Severino's just too tough on even left-handers. 280 Woba, 49% ground ball rate. So, I'm not exactly going there tonight. Slate's big enough for me to avoid. On the Yankees side, though, talked about the stack, but you look at the right-handed bats here, 371 Woba, 39% hard contact rate to righties this year from Chavez, 2.68 home runs per 9. Let's take a look at Judge, Holiday, Castro, Gary Sanchez. This is a team with all over 200 ISO against righties. The only one who doesn't is Headley and Carter right now. Gregorius even got that ISO up over 200 after last night. So 1 through 7, this team's very playable for me. I look at their potential. These guys have a ton of home run potential at home, as they always do in that ballpark. Over a 5.5 run total. They won't be sneaky, but there's definitely a lot of upside there for GPPs. Look at the Cubs game, Cubs-Marlins. This is a spot for the Cubs really more than anything. Against lefties this year, Ian Happ hasn't been all that bad. He's shown a couple of power strokes, but the 40% strikeout rate's huge. Boomer bust play at second base. Then you look at guys like Chris Bryant, over 300 ISO against lefties this year. I don't mind him. Bad ballpark in Miami, but I'm willing to overlook that for some of these price tags. Look at Wilson Contreras, Addison Russell, Javier Baez, Albert Almora. I'll definitely consider them, just given the fact they do have some decent power against lefties. And even look, the run total there is nearing 5 for Chicago, and the roof may or may not be open there. In Miami, if it's open, it's obviously a good boost for those hitters. On the Miami side, look at Arrieta, where he struggled this year. It's been with lefties, 375 Woba, still striking out decent, about 1.97 homers per 9. The problem is there's not a lot of lefties I want to use on this Miami team. D. Gordon might be a stolen base threat. Sure, if he gets on, I don't mind it. Christian Yelich, the power hasn't really been there against right-handed pitching this year. Been a little bit weird. This is where I want to make my move, is probably Justin Bour. 258 ISO, 367 Woba against righties. There's a potential for me for a GPP guy at first base. I love his upside. Bit boomer bust because the strikeout rate is higher. This year he's cut down a little bit against righties, but Bohr definitely has a lot of potential. He's probably the one-off that I'll use for that Miami side more than anyone else. Getting to this other one, you look at the Giants going up against the lefty, Jaime Garcia. Garcia, pretty average this year, rolling a lot of ground balls again. I'm just not too intrigued. You can always take a look at Buster Posey against the lefty, Hunter Pence as well. Those are probably the only two that I'll keep an eye on. I'm more intrigued with this Atlanta side, given the fact that Kane is just awful against both sides of the plate. 355 WOBA to lefties this year, 353 WOBA to righties. All these guys are in play for me. I mean, Matt Kemp, 388 WOBA, 236 ISO against righties. Matt Adams, 282 ISO, 379 WOBA against righties. Tyler Flowers, 392 WOBA against righties, 166 ISO this season. And obviously, I don't even mind, Markakis, Brandon Phillips, and Inciarte. There's just not a lot of power with them. That's the only issue. So I may start Markakis, Kemp, Adams, Flowers as my kind of Atlanta stack, and leave out the other guys, but all are certainly in play in that ballpark. There's a lot of potential there. Break up into the West Coast games, Detroit at Seattle. This one projected for a high-scoring game. We've also seen a lot of high-scoring games fall at Safeco Field before, so being a little bit worried. I don't mind the pitching in that one, especially more on Daniel Norris' side, but we'll look at some of these Seattle bats. I mean, against lefties this year, Nelson Cruz always in potential there. Danny Valencia, I don't mind either. And Mitch Haniger. You look at Norris, he is still allowing a hard contact rate of 43% to righties. Isn't allowing a ton of home runs, which is good. Strikeout rate's decent. I look at Seattle side more of just GPP plays. They're probably not going to crack my core. But I do like the potential for one-offs there. As I said, Valencia, Haniger, Nelson Cruz, Gene Segura, those are guys I'll consider tonight. Even Mike Zunino as well behind the dish, whose prices come up quite a bit. On the other side, you get the Tigers, who are going up against a rookie right-hander. Minor league stuff, I mean, not bad. He's just trying to spot start here. But you look at these guys, I mean, against righties. Alex Avila, sneaky, 438, 287 WOBA. Look at Miguel Cabrera. This guy's going to start to come around here soon. Just a 311 WOBA, 181 ISO. But talked about this numerous times before. BABIP is extremely low. JD Martinez, 290 ISO against righties. Upton, 241 ISO against righties. Those right-handed bats are intriguing, even in Safeco. I like them in terms of a one-off fashion, even two-off. So they're much in play for me. And that's how I'm going to look at this Detroit-Seattle game. I mean, there is a lot of power for one-off potential, two-off potential, and I think that's what you're going to get. I talked about them on a stacking pod. They're intriguing just more if you're building multiple lineups, and just, if you're limiting yourself to maybe 3 or 4, I'll work in a JD Martinez, I'll work in a Miguel Cabrera, especially on DraftKings where he's really cheap. It's kind of those one-offs. So looking at the Mets-Dodgers game next, there's only 2 guys that I'll really consider on the Mets side. That's Wilmer Flores against the lefty and Yoenis Cespedes against the lefty. That's about it for me. You look at Ryu against righties this year, 319 WOBA, 34% hard contact rate. He's been a little bit better over his last few starts. There's a reason why the Mets are projected for under 4 runs. That's because those are the only 2 bets that I'll worry about. On the other side, Matheson's the guy I'm just dying to pick on. Over his larger sample size, he's obviously been really solid against both sides of the plate. I don't mind taking shots at like Forsythe, Franklin Gutierrez. Those are guys that I'll plug in platoon-wise, but there's always a potential that they get pinch hit for, more so Gutierrez and Forsythe. Chris Taylor, he's been a guy I'll take a look at against lefties. 243 ISO this year. Turner, 440 WOBA against lefties. I like him. He'll go a little bit underrated. Even Bellinger. I mean, Bellinger's hit lefties well, so 391 ISO against them, but the strikeout rate's high, as it is just across the board. But in play for me, Yasiel Puig as well. You can look at Dodgers one-offs. I'm not jumping on board. I could see a start where Mats maybe has a start like he did against Washington, or maybe he gives up a couple shots, but kind of limits the damage. I think this Dodgers line is going to start to come down just a little bit. Probably going to see it around 4.4, 4.5 would be my guess, which would be a pretty big drop from the 4.7, 4.8 where they were this morning. I think they started out at 4.9, already down to 4.7. So could see it drop a little bit more. Don't mind them, but this is probably more one-off territory in this game than anything. So let's wrap things up here. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com, check out our great tools and content.